Good morning from Central Virginia. Today we're going to take a look at the pumpkin patch. I have been growing pumpkins. This is only my second year. Last year was wildly successful and I learned so much about growing pumpkins. The first thing I learned about growing pumpkins last year is location, location, location. Last year I had planted just 2 pumpkins in this very long bed and I had flowers in here as well. Well, you can see from the placement, this is on the western corner, western edge of my garden. Well, they grew down and out and all through the garden. So in essence, I had pumpkins gallivanting all over the place, climbing over plants and under plants and everything. And I had pumpkins and they grew great, but the problem was they did drown out some of the flowers and things like that. All right, so what did I do differently this year? Well, you might remember me building this experimental bed for potatoes and planting some potatoes in it late March. And I decided after I pulled the potatoes out, this would actually be a great place for my pumpkin patch, or at least some of my pumpkins to grow, because it is on the southern edge of the garden. And I knew that the plants would spread out into the garden. And I didn't mind so much if they spread into where the blueberries are growing, because I knew that they would also shade out and inhibit some of the grass from growing as well, which is exactly what has happened. I direct seeded my pumpkins this year. I did not start them indoors, and I actually started them a little bit later than normal, and that was mainly because of all the family things we had going on with my father-in-law's health and a subsequent passing. So I really didn't get them started in May like I wanted to. I got these Cinderella pumpkins started the second week in June. It was after I had pulled out the potatoes. Well, they're doing just fine, and they're now starting to set their first fruit. You can see right here the first Cinderella pumpkin started to form. I love coming out this time of day. It's morning here in Central Virginia, and this is the time when the blossoms are really going. Let's see if we can take a look at some of the beautiful blossoms from this plant. Yeah, here they are. Aren't they just gorgeous? See that busy bee down in that and all the other little guys as well. Yeah. All right. So these are mainly, I believe, male flowers. You can tell the male flowers because there's just a stem coming up and a flower. Let's see if we can find some of the female flowers. You have to have the male flowers blooming. You're normally going to have more of the male flowers on the plant, but you have to have pollination happens. It takes 2. Look at these 2 bees having a great time in that flower. This is the female flower. It is not open yet, but this is what the female flower is going to look like. It's got a little nascent pumpkin right there. If that gets pollinated, it will turn into a pumpkin. The other thing you really have to do with growing pumpkins and squash is you've got to be vigilant about checking for squash bugs, because they will get you. And this year, on this particular pumpkin, the Cinderella pumpkin growing out here, I can't believe how many squash bug eggs I'm finding now. I came out the night before last and I checked every single leaf, and I would say that almost every 3rd leaf had squash bug eggs on it. And then I came out yesterday afternoon, and lo and behold, I did the same thing and I found an equal number of squash bug eggs. Even I found squash bugs in the act of laying eggs. So for right now, until this brood gets done laying eggs, I am going to be coming out every single day. Now let me show you what the squash bug eggs look like. Usually the squash bug plant lays their eggs on the bottom of the plant. But here's an example of being laid on the front part, and what you're just going to do is you're just going to squish them off. You can also take up that portion of the leaf and just cut it out and destroy it. Your squash plant will be fine. Now, I always, always, always check on the underside of the leaf as well. Here's squash bug eggs right here. Just squish them off. And here's another one. See, I'm going to have to come back today, and I'll come out every single day and check every single plant. Now, could you do this on a large scale if you were growing commercially? Don't think so. It would be labor intensive, but it's very practical for just the home garden. How big does a pumpkin plant get? It gets humongous. I have 2 planted in this spot, and they're going in all over the place. This particular plant was attacked by squash vine borers, and it was successfully rescued, and it re-roots. And you can see this plant growing. Oh, it's a good probably 13 feet out that way. Here's another prong of it. It's coming over here. It's just growing all over the place, and it's growing into the blackberry bush. So to sum up some of the things that I learned and have understand about growing pumpkins, put them in a place where they can spread for sure. I like them on the edge of my garden. I don't mind them rambling all over the place. Check often for insect damage, particularly squash vine borers and the squash bugs. So squash vine borers at this point in my area probably are done laying their eggs. Squash vine borers are incredibly destructive. If you've ever had a squash plant just completely overnight absolutely collapse, it's because of the vine borers most likely. And you can detect that. Now with pumpkins, it's kind of cool because if you see damage, like a little sawdust, you can actually do a little surgery, poke out the vine borers. This year I also injected them with BT when I knew that there was a vine borer there. And then the nice thing about pumpkins, because they vine all over the place, like other winter squash, they will produce additional roots where they touch the ground, where the vine touches the ground. And you can actually take a place where the vine borer went in, cover it up after you do your surgery with soil. It will reroot, and then I actually it's rerooted in many places along this garden. So particularly as this plant is now this size, I think it's pretty safe from, knock on wood, vine borer damage at this point, because those vine borers have come, they've laid their eggs, and those larvae would have hatched by now and manifested themselves. As far as squash bugs, they are a perpetual pest for me, and they get on the squash, they get on the pumpkins. Sometimes they'll get on the melon plants, not all that often. But I have found just the best solution for that, if you can, is really vigilantly checking for the eggs. If you can get rid of the eggs, you're not going to have hatchlings, and if you don't have hatchlings, you're going to diminish the number of adult squash bugs. Squash bugs are going to come in no matter what. And in this area, they're going to keep laying eggs apparently until maybe even August. Another way you can get around that is planting things later. But pumpkins need time. The Seminole pumpkins take a good 100 days to come to full growth. And these big Cinderella pumpkins take more like 110 to 120 days. So that gets me into October. Yeah, so these pumpkins are coming along, and I hope that we'll have a whole bunch of them. I'll keep showing them to you as we move along. So I am going to turn my attention now to the great squash bug egg hunt. So I need to get going with that work. I hope your garden's growing well. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do so and help me grow my channel. Hope you're well. Take care. Bye. All right, let's go get some squash bugs. I saw some over here. Yep, here's some.